gentlemen, welcome. We are back.
We are back after the holidays.
That's right after How was your holiday?
It was good.
You had a good one?
Yeah.
Good Christmas?
Yeah, good Christmas, good New Year.
What did Santa bring you?
I am not going to say it because, well,
it wasn't a dildo, was it?
No, but
because the way you said it.
A recording device.
Recording device?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Well, that'll come in handy around here.
I actually got new cameras for the house.
Okay.
And other recording devices.
Very good.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, I like recording devices.
I know you do.
All right. So this is episode 10. I just want everybody to just have a little reset. We're going to take a deep breath because if you have been doom scrolling this week and you thought to yourself, hey, wait, did the U.S. just kidnap a head of state and start talking like a provisional government? Congratulations. You're not crazy. You're simply living in 2026.
That's right. Happy New Year, y'all.
I'm Timothy Gibbs. I'm the moderate Democrat sitting on the left.
And I'm Krista Hassel. I'm the Christian conservative sitting on the right.
All right. Now, let me just say that I don't believe that America is the villain in every story, but I also don't believe that we ever do anything for free, especially not quietly.
Yeah.
And especially not south of Texas.
Right.
So that brings us to segment 1, which is
Venezuela.
We're going to talk about the same thing everybody else is talking about. Let's get something straight right out of the gate. This is not about Nicolas Maduro as a person. Strong men are disposable. Resources are not.
That's right.
So with that, I give you the floor.
Okay, so here's my take on it. You call a duck a duck. If it's about drugs, I call BS on that. That's what they want us to believe. But this is about oil. And as you're going to mention, it's about more than oil because there are some other resources that are under Venezuela's dirt.
Oh, yeah.
That could be very important to us. And this was a strategic move.
Absolutely, 100%.
But let's dive into that drug thing.
Okay.
Let's dive into it really quick. And then I'll kind of go back to the oil and what my take is on that.
Okay.
So as far as drugs are concerned, when we're talking about drug trafficking facts, Venezuela is primarily a transit company and not a major producer. And basically what I'm going to do in this segment is talk about Venezuela versus Mexico. So let's go there.
Okay.
Cocaine largely originates from Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. There's an estimated 200 to 250 metric tons of cocaine that transit Venezuela annually. Only a small share of that cocaine enters the U.S., moving through Venezuela. Venezuela is not a producer of fentanyl or an exporter of fentanyl. And much of Venezuelans transiting cocaine is bound for Europe and not the U.S. So these are facts that I pulled and I've researched. Now let's talk about Mexico. Did you know that 100% of the fentanyl comes from Mexico? 100% of the fentanyl that enters the U.S. comes from Mexico.
100%.
100%. Now we have the precursor.
Well, I thought China doesn't China import?
They precursors to make the fentanyl.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So the precursors come to Mexico. Mexico manufactures it, and then Mexico sends it right over to the U.S. And here's my biggest question. And it's not just fentanyl. We've got methamphetamine, heroin, and most cocaine routes into the U.S. from Mexico. So a very minor amount of cocaine comes from Venezuela. So my question is, if this was about drugs, why didn't we go to the source and hit Mexico instead of Venezuela?
Because it wasn't about drugs.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly. So let's kind of dig into the oil a little bit. Here's my take on the oil side of things. The narrative that the U.S. only cares about Venezuela's oil, it sounds tidy, but it does collapse when you zoom in and you take a look at Russia and China and the strategic entanglement with Venezuela.
Sure.
So oil matters, yes, but a control, leverage, and hemispheric security matter far more. So let's break it down. Venezuela's oil isn't just oil, it's leverage. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world And much of it is heavy crude oil, which is very expensive to extract.
That's the dark stuff, right?
Yep,
The tar.
That's the molasses, not the honey.
Yeah, the honey is ours, right?
That's right. That's right.
And that makes it harder to refine.
It's super expensive. So, and it does require foreign technology. Additionally, it has limited buyers. So the reality alone undercuts the idea that Venezuela is some easy oil grab for the U.S. Now, when we talk about China's role, we're talking about debt, dependency, and quiet control. China didn't show up waving flags. It showed up with loans, lots of them.
And those have increased over time.
They have. And we're talking tens of billions of dollars. And those loans are being repaid in oil. Now, we have to understand that the infrastructure in Venezuela for the oil extraction is dilapidated. It's been there for years and it hasn't been maintained. But they are able to still pull oil from their dirt and
sell it to the likes of
China,
China,
Russia.
Cuba, Russia.
That's right.
And they're doing it using American equipment, isn't that right?
That is correct.
That infrastructure is largely American.
Yes, it is.
And that technology and the implementation of it was put in there years ago in a deal that, of course, would be not only would it be fortifying the Venezuelan economy and enriching to some degree, at least the lives of Venezuelans in general, but it would be enriching those United States companies.
That's right.
It was before Maduro.
It was.
Hugo was in there.
That's right. So our timeline, Chavez took office 1998 to 2012. Maduro took over in 2013, and in March of 2013, Chavez died of cancer. The actual collapse of Venezuela did not start. So Chavez kind of laid the groundwork for that collapse, but the actual collapse did not happen until Maduro took office.
Maduro has done a good job of enriching himself. He's done a good job of empowering himself. He's done a better job of undermining the democracy even further than it isn't a democracy anymore. He obliterated the democracy that once was. Venezuela was once the wealthiest of South American nations.
And beautiful.
And it was once a democracy.
Yep.
No more. And Maduro did a very good job in ensuring that the destruction of that democracy further. And I think there's not a debate about his thuggery. And I'm not going to debate.
He's a bad guy.
Right. And by the way, I don't even think this is a discussion about whether or not it's better for him to be.
That's right.
And I think the argument is solid. It's certainly better for Venezuela. I'm not a Venezuelan, and it's presumptuous of me to even say so, but that's my thought. So those are my beliefs.
Well, but you do see what's happening in Cuba, and
Cuba's
Venezuela,
a different animal.
Venezuela was impoverished. I mean, they eat no food.
Well, he look toward the end here, they had something like 400% inflation. We think we have inflation here.
Yeah.
No. They've taken inflation to a whole new level. And not only had Maduro overseen massive inflation, but a serious devaluation of the currency, the infrastructure falling down around its ears, not just oil infrastructure.
Right.
And these are people going hungry at a level that they hadn't before and certainly shouldn't. So
that's right.
Big arguments to be made to get him out and restore a semblance of the life that they once lived there.
That's right.
But this is certainly not about drugs. If it were about drugs, why? I mean, look what he did with Hernandez. Pardoned him. This guy was a massive cocaine dealer, full-blown murderer, murdering Americans, supplying tons and tons of cocaine to the United States. And Trump pardons him. To say it's inconsistent is understating it. So clearly, what we talked about at the top, it's not about drugs, but it's not just about oil, which I'm going to get to. Is it my turn?
Well, I want to just do a key point too.
Yeah.
So with China, China doesn't need Venezuela to thrive. It only needs them to stay dependent.
Yeah, because it's
that's right.
It's the loans,
and it's really the classic.
So China's doing its thing on their debt.
Right? Yeah, it's the playbook: debt, dependence and then influence. And then we look at Russia. Russia's role is geopolitical. We have to think about the position.
Disturbing the peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's a geopolitical disruption. It's not profit. Russia's involvement is even more revealing.
I would argue Iran's involvement is probably similar. Is it?
I would think so. Yes. Yep. So with Russia having control of the oil in Venezuela, it truly does give Russia a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. So it's right out our back door. Russia state-owned Rosneft, which is the Russian oil company. They heavily invested in Venezuela's oil sector. They provided military equipment, security support, political backing for Maduro. And, like I said, it's a foothold in the Western Hemisphere, which is a tool to counter U.S. sanctions globally. Russia doesn't need Venezuelan oil to fuel its economy. It needs Venezuelan oil to weaken U.S.'s influence.
On the oil front, you had American companies invest something along the lines of $2 billion on infrastructure, oil infrastructure.
Yeah.
That was taken away from them under Chavez. And it was it was kept away from them by Maduro.
Right.
It could be justified to take certain measures to go in and get it back. But there's more to it. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I'm going to start mine with a question.
All right.
Do you think this happens in a world where AI and the AI race doesn't exist?
I don't think it does, because the USA wants to be top in everything. And I don't know if China is ahead of the AI game, ahead of the US in the AI game.
It depends upon who you ask, but there are many who are level-headed individuals in the know who believe that China's kicking our ass in AI. And part of the reason why
I can see it.
Well, part of the reason why may be that Xi can just point somewhere, and as Scott Galloway said, she just points and says, "Hey, put an AI power station here, put a coal fire plant here." He doesn't have red tape to cut through.
That's right.
He doesn't go to a body of government and look for approval. He just points and says, "Put it there." And he's not burdened by ecological concerns or otherwise. It's an advantage to China in a race that is I would argue that this race is as or more important than the race for the hydrogen bomb, and certainly more important than the race to the moon.
AI
fails by comparison.
Yeah.
Why? Because at the front of AI for any country is not only the military capability, but the advancements as a whole,
right,
spearheaded by that military capability. It's going to revolutionize how wars are fought, etc. And of course, the United States does and should want to be at the forefront and hold the forefront. I agree with that. I understand why it's so important. But that said, there are a lot of supportive elements that go into making AI possible. And many of those actual elements are in the ground in Venezuela. So Venezuela is not just oil rich, but it's mineral rich. And you're talking about lithium, you're talking about rare earth minerals, but we're going to take this by the numbers.
Well, and I want to interject the data centers that are currently being discussed across the board, state level and federal level. They'll need certain resources to make that happen.
You're damn right. So
or those data centers.
That's why I asked you that question, because the reality is that, and this is not opinion, this is fact. The AI race is a real thing. The United States is desperate to win it, just like China is desperate to win it. Those are your two top players in the game. One of them is going to win. What does winning that mean? I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what losing looks like. And I don't know if there's like a way of seeing a definitive win-loss in the traditional sense. But I do know that the country that gets the jump and leads the way in AI is setting themselves up for a future, in my opinion, of greater security and faster growth. And of course, the United States wants to be at the lead there. Now, How does the oil play into that? Well, does the crude that comes out of the ground in Venezuela offer any power source to the data centers, which require an enormous amount of power? Look at Bill Gates and look at his initiatives of late. Bill Gates' primary initiative right now is let's get nuclear power powering data centers. Now, why is that good? Well, it's good because the exhaust of a nuclear power plant is far greater, ecologically speaking, far better than a coal fire plant, right? But beyond that, it's extremely powerful. It's one of the sources that could generate the power necessary for a behemoth of a power sucker that are these data centers. These data centers can go in and suck the life out of the electricity far more than the communities around it. So in order to power the power, to turn it on and make it work is a necessary engine to be able to win this race or even compete in it. So the question is, can that crude that comes out of the ground in Venezuela somehow contribute to the powering of data centers? I don't know the answer to that. I would think that if that crude can't directly, maybe there's some scenario where it replaces a fuel that can, and therefore you have a greater access to fuel you need. But I'm more interested in the lithium. Here's
just popped into my head. So cell phones, our tablets, our computers, so many things use those lithium batteries.
right.
And most of those things are produced in China.
Well, this is where it gets modern. Lithium is not just for Teslas, it is for grid scale energy storage. AI doesn't run on good vibes, it runs on electricity. It's this massive, constant electricity stream, and lithium smooths the spikes when the renewables can't keep up. And then you pivot from there to the rare earth minerals in the ground in Venezuela. And by the way, in a density that is about equal, if I'm not mistaken, to the two other greater resources combined, country to country. So the rare earth minerals there in Venezuela are these things that I'm recently learning about. So it's neodymium, I think I'm saying that right, dysprosium, and one called lanthanum. Let's say that 10 times fast.
No thanks.
So these are kind of unsexy names, but here's what they do. AI server cooling systems, wind turbines, EV motors, precision weaponry, advanced semiconductors. I'm going to say that last one again, advanced semiconductors. All of that in terms of the rare earth needed for those things in the ground in abundance in Venezuela. So again, I ask the question, does this happen in a scenario where the AI race is not a real thing? And my answer to that is no. China has a chokehold right now on that rare earth. Venezuela is one of the few places on the board where that grip can be loosened. And you better believe that that falls into the strategic concerns of the United States.
Absolutely.
And then it doesn't stop there, because under the ground in Venezuela is some of the highest concentration of gold reserves in the world, and copper. So think about that for a minute. Gold is what stabilizes currencies in chaos.
Yes.
During times of chaos, where do they run? Gold. Copper is the circulatory system of electrification.
That's right.
Data centers, transmission lines, transformers. You don't build an AI future without copper, period, done, end of story. So when you hear law enforcement action or narco state justification, you have to understand that those are the keys, not the engine.
Right. And just, again, call a duck a duck.
Call a duck a duck.
Just be honest with the American people.
Yeah. And my punchline to this, by the way, is if we were in a game of Monopoly, Venezuela isn't Boardwalk, it's the bank.
You got it.
All right. With that, we're going to take a break. We are actually going to pay our bills with our ads. So go listen to an ad or two, and we'll be right back after this.
All right, guys.
People promise you a lot this time of year. Gifts, guarantees, once-in-a-lifetime deals. Some of them look solid until you receive them. Real tables don't melt. They endure, year after year, growing more and more beautiful as they host life's most important moments. Archaic, extraordinary, Primitive farmhouse furniture, built to order, built by hand, built to last.
We're back. So,
Let's talk about the state.
oh yeah, let's do it.
What you
This
think?
segment 2,
Segment 2.
state level mayhem.
Yeah. Before we get started, I'm going to read a little story.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
Do it.
Because we are going to talk about immigration enforcement at the state level. And this story plays a direct role in that. So there was a recent case in Somerville, early June 2025. A major federal and local law enforcement operation, including ICE, targeted the Alamo nightclub near Somerville, Goose Creek in Charleston County. It resulted in around 80 arrests for immigration violations, narcotics, firearms, and alleged cartel links. So, the key details of the raid: location, Alamo nightclub, date, June 1st, 2025. Agencies involved: ICE, SLED, Charleston County Sheriff's Office, and other local, state, and federal agencies. The operation name was Operation Last Stand. Arrest: 80 people were arrested, with over 66 facing civil immigration violations. They were undocumented. The criminal charges: 5 individuals face criminal charges, including assault, drug possession, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. 2 were linked.
Kelly Ulmer. Sorry.
Wonder if he was there. Anyway, sorry, y'all. 2 were linked to international gangs, Los Zetas and Tren de Aragua.
Okay.
Okay. According to officials, the seizures were drugs, firearms, and 1 missing juvenile was recovered.
Wow.
Yes. So the aftermath, and we're going to get into this a little bit. The nightclub was unlicensed and operating illegally, described by officials as cartel after party. The operation began from noise complaints and a parking lot assault. The raid caused fear in the local immigrant community, with reports of differential treatment by officers. The Alamo nightclub was permanently shut down by county code enforcement. So let's talk about this bill.
Remember the Alamo, but I never went.
No, I never went either. All right. So the legislative session 2026 starts this coming Tuesday, January 13th.
Okay.
One of the bills on the forefront is HB 4764.
This is the state bill that basically says, hey, sheriffs, congratulations, you're federal agents now.
Yep, absolutely. It does aim to strengthen South Carolina's role in immigration enforcement at the state level.
I'm going to argue that it's going to essentially pressure state law enforcement to participate directly in federal immigration enforcement, which has the danger of having no nuance to it or flexibility, and just a mandate, which is dangerous. I'll get
this bill. It.
In other words, I'm against it.
Yeah.
But you brought up something that we should cover. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, immigration enforcement obviously affects public safety and state resources, local economies, and the balance between federal and state authority. I'm on the fence about this bill. And I think the reason I'm on the fence about it is the same reason you're on the fence about it. So you go first.
Well, here's the thing. I have to acknowledge that this didn't come from me. It came from my much smarter than I wife, who in discussion about this, mentioned something that I think is a really real concern. So here's the scenario. I'm a legal immigrant and I'm in this country legally while I follow the legal channels to pursue my citizenship or my residency, right? My legal residency. And I'm living in this time of ICE, contemporary times, and it scares the shit out of me because I've heard of or seen either firsthand or on the news, people like me who are being deported, even if they're following the right channels. And I'm established here. I'm getting my education here at night, and I'm contributing through my job during the day, and I'm raising my children here, and they're in school or whatever. So I have a lot to protect, but I witnessed a crime. And I want to come to local law enforcement and tell you about it. I want to be the witness to the murder you're investigating, or to the missing child, or to the theft, or whatever. But because I see you now as one and the same, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And although I'm just giving you a fictitious scenario at the moment, it's a real possibility should this come to pass. And I wonder if the question is, are you undermining one branch of law enforcement, specifically a state branch or a municipal branch even, in order to service a larger goal at the federal level that the federal agency could do itself? It could do it a lot better than it is. I'm not a pro ICE guy. I would like to see ICE melted completely. But that said, that is not clouding my judgment on this particular subject matter.
Right.
I really believe what I'm telling you, that it seems like it has just as much a possibility of undermining local law enforcement as it does empowering them. And you and I had an opportunity to discuss this a little bit before we recorded. You made the point, if you remember it, tell it, because it's compelling.
So, when we look at our rural community here in Ellery, South Carolina, we have Earl Kinley, who is very community oriented, and
Our chief of police.
Yes, he is our chief of police, and he is definitely an asset to our community because he does pull the community together. So moving forward, let's just take the scenario of one of our rural farmers here. We're a big farming community, and those farmers utilize migrant workers. And let's just say there's a crime and Earl gets called out to that farm. Not only does he have a relationship with the longtime farmer that's been here generations farming this particular land, but he's also got the concern of the migrant workers who may or may not be legal. So Earl is put into a situation where he has to follow the law, and it could be at a detriment to the farmer and also to the migrant worker who is simply here trying to support his family and not doing anything wrong.
Yeah. And of course, yeah, I agree with you. So it does, you're with me that it presents a question at the very least.
It does.
What are the long-term effects of this, or what are the effects in the medium term? We don't know. We're going to have to, first of all, let me ask you this, because you know better than I do. What are you thinking in terms of this passing or not passing?
I believe that it will pass.
You think it's going to be, with amendments or what?
Maybe some amendments. I'm interested to see the final version of the bill.
And McMaster's will sign it.
And he will sign it.
And Lindsey Graham's head will then firmly be even further up Trump's ass, which to me is impossible. It's down around his ankles already. I don't know how he's doing it.
Lindsey Graham, y'all, I'm sorry, Lindsey's got to go. He has just got to go.
Right.
That's a whole nother show. But, I definitely see the benefits with shared information. Let's just say we've got an illegal that comes into our small town and tries to hide out here because, again, we are a very small town and lots of people hide in plain sight in this town.
Oh, yeah.
Some of our officials actually. So anyway, moving on, shared information, assistance, cooperation. I can see the benefit in that, but we have to remember that it has to be cooperation and not a takeover, not a replacement. Because our local law enforcement in our small towns, even our larger towns, our local law enforcement's important. They're the ones with boots on the ground in our communities.
Well, we shall see how this shakes out, and we'll keep a close eye on it. This is bringing us to break number 2. We're going to take a brief moment to
pay those bills again.
Once again. And we'll be right back after this.
Press Me, where your style is hot off the press. From bold statement tees to one-of-a-kind designs, Press Me lets you create, customize, and wear what speaks to you. Choose from our designs, bring your own, or let our team create something totally custom, made just for you. Our email address is pressmeboutique@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Facebook. Press Me, your local t-shirt shop.
We're back, y'all. Hey.
This is our third and final segment. This is where we bring it all home to Ellery itself. We're going to zoom all the way in. Kelly Ulmer has chosen a private swearing in as mayor. And Krista, I know you had some thoughts on that.
I do have some thoughts on that. I mentioned previously that we have some officials that kind of hide in plain sight. When you swear your oath as a public official and you don't do it in the public square, there are lots of issues with that, especially with our current situation here in LRE.
I agree.
You know, we're under the auspices right now of legal action, 2 active lawsuits, 1 recently settled, possibly more in the mix. Just rumor has it that there may be a couple coming down the pipe.
Yep. By the
And-
way, this next lawsuit that we have heard about, that would be lawsuit number 4.
Yes.
And I understand that lawsuit number 5 is potentially right behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just the civil lawsuit that's in question, but the criminal referrals that have been sent off to SLED by Solicitor David Pasco. You would think that if a new incoming mayor was truly concerned about transparency and accountability, he would have taken that oath in the public square.
I think that what Kelly is concerned about is, and this is, I recognize an assertion of mine, where his taking of his oath was concerned. I think he really wanted to avoid controversy, wanted to avoid being photographed or videoed doing it, where we might be able to use that in commentary on the whole affair. And when I say we, I mean anyone who might have been there. And you're right in that the message it's sending is we're going to continue doing things in a clandestine fashion. You know, at a recent town hall meeting, Tanya Weaver went up and asked about the settlement that my family and I reached with Ellery. They agreed to pay us the state cap, as you know. Anybody who's been listening knows that. Of course, they did it with a statement that it's not an admission of guilt. If it's not, I don't know what is. It's certainly an admission that you had I believe it to be an admission that you had a hit possibility of defending yourselves. And I'm able to say that because of the audio recordings and video recordings and photographs I maintain. They didn't answer one single question. And look, Mike is the strong mayor. He had an opportunity to come back, answer those questions for the community, chose not to, chose to pretend they were never asked. Kelly's sort of demonstrating that he's interested in doing the same thing by taking his oath in a clandestine, closed-door fashion. You would think that a healthy mayor with the intention of addressing what has been going on in this town, and that for at least some of the townspeople has raised a lot of questions and concerns. You would think that that mayor would step in and say, hey, well, I'm aware of it, and it's a new time. It's a new mayor. I intend to address these things, and we're going to start by taking this oath and giving you a speech that recognizes your concerns. Didn't do any of those things, and he didn't do it because he's more interested in preserving, I believe, not only himself, which would be number one, but also, look, this is a guy who's under criminal investigation if SLED has followed the request of David Pasco, the solicitor.
Yes.
You would think that he would want to be projecting a visage, at least, of a person doing things right.
Right.
I don't think this projects that.
No, I don't either.
It more projects that he's got something to hide.
And here's another viewpoint. If you're not willing, if let's just say Kelly decided to take the oath in private because he didn't want to face any conflict. You know, if he gave this speech and somebody in the audience questioned him and he wanted to avoid that conflict, that tells me that he's not willing to face or answer the tough questions.
Right. I agree with you. I also think that there's got to be a level of concern amongst them, those who are under scrutiny, those who are being looked at. It includes everybody named in David Pasco's letter calling for SLED to investigate.
And that's Fanning, Ulmer, Murphy, Jessica Darnell, Mike Mann, and Lauren Davis Smith.
That's right.
So,
and I would imagine if I'm any of those people, I'm concerned, knowing what I know about them vis-a-vis my own experiences with them, they should be. And if SLED does their job here, now that's a big if, because you and I have seen in our own cases where SLED has not followed through. But if in this case SLED does follow through and does their due diligence, and we will know whether they do or don't, because they will come and talk with us.
Right.
Now, did they do that? then you would see a certain amongst them face the repercussions criminally. But there is a good chance that SLED doesn't. I've had no indication that they will. And in fact, I've been told by some very reputable people with experience in the realm that they won't.
Right.
So, we'll see where we go from here.
Well, and I want to bring this up too. After December's town council meeting, Tanya asked her questions in November. December's town council meeting, they did not address those questions as they promised in November's council meeting. So shortly after December's council meeting, Tanya sent in a very, very detailed FOIA request to the town, and she has not received any information. They've not acknowledged it. They've not responded to it. And that has been most.
That's something to take to the attorney.
Yes, because that is one of the allegations that was in the civil suit.
It's actionable. And I got to say, now I'm going to pivot to David Pasco. David Pasco, who I've briefly spoken with on the phone and who sent a letter to LRE and also over to the Orangeburg County Jail and to SLED. This letter called for the immediate destruction of any criminal records or any records tied to me, Timothy Gibbs. LRE has already, I'm sure, I won't say I'm sure because LRE is a different animal and they're hard to clock. But had they done what they had been told they were supposed to, and Earl has told me that he did, they would have destroyed those records. But you know what else they would have destroyed? Any other records that they had that might be interesting to SLED.
Well,
because they'll take the opportunity to destroy every single record that they had related to me, which might actually undermine an investigation, right? So David Pasco did both a good thing and a thing that might end up actually hurting the very case that he asked to be investigated in the first place.
And if you remember in that civil suit, it's alleged that Jessica Darnell destroyed 10
That is an allegation. Yep. That's
of
serious
electronic
allegation.
documentation.
Now let's talk a little bit about the civil suit before we hang it up.
Sure. So
you know that what I'm going to say what you've heard me say before. At David Martin, Icarus, the man with the wax wings flying too close to the sun. That's David Martin. David Martin has brought a civil suit that, if properly and thoroughly investigated by SLED, should not only result in potential criminal charges for some of those, if not all of those he has alleged have committed crimes, because his civil case is based essentially on multiple accusations of crimes committed. Old Icarus there also was complicit in a crime of malicious prosecution against me and couldn't have done what he did without knowingly, wittingly playing a role in a malicious prosecution. He knows that he didn't do a real investigation, and he knows he didn't have a real crime. If he didn't believe that, he would have shown up out at the emergency bail hearing, or he would have shown up in other places where he should have, or he would have actually investigated before he signed the warrant, not after. So David Martin has committed at least one of SLED's 9 deadly sins where I'm concerned, which is enough for him, in my mind, to be decertified. So that's the point where the wings melt. And will it happen? I don't know. I know you and I have discussed it. You don't think it'll happen. You think he'll have immunity. It's strange for me because on one hand, I appreciate that David Martin is bringing to light the cabal that these people have formed. But I also have to say that David Martin played a pivotal role in making it happen. Yeah.
It is. It's bittersweet.
It's
for all of us, because I was directly involved with your family during that time.
You bet.
And the prayers that I said and the tears that I cried, while I knew Patry was probably terrified and your children were terrified without having Papa home. It's bittersweet for all of us who are involved. And that, when the civil case.
If I'm honest, I think my 13-year-old he was 12 at the time. I think he was probably happy that he got more time on his computer.
I had conversations with your 12-year-old at the time, and he was not happy his papa was not home.
That is true. That is true.
So, I believe that David has done a huge, this is a huge benefit to us. It almost gives us vindication to see that civil suit.
Yeah, for
come
sure.
across.
It definitely,
And it feels good that we're not the crazy ones, the conspiracy theorists.
Well, I never thought it, and I never cared if somebody did.
Yeah, I didn't
I've
either.
always known.
I knew what was going on.
And again, I have the evidence to prove it. So I'm in a position to be able to speak freely and speak up because I can back up what I say. I know that Kelly Ulmer played a role. Wow, I saw someone who looked exactly like his mom down in Florida a day or two before I got her. Right down there, my mom's pulling that U-turn.
And drives a similar vehicle too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
very
what
interesting.
a coinky dink.
It
And
really
so I know the level at which Ulmer is involved in these things that a person who wanted to run for mayor should really be above and better than. But
Hold a
look,
higher
you
standard.
lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas, and
right.
he's hanging out with the wrong people. He's friends with the wrong people. I know the criminality behind Sean.
We know.
I know the criminality behind Kelly. In fact, if anybody doubts it, just look at his history in Florida. That's another thing. You want SLED to look at all those, look
Well,
beyond your own state.
And I will tell you that SLED does have his Florida.
I know they do. Yeah.
Yeah. They have it. They have it.
Oh, and they have a lot. What they do with it is
Yes. We do have 2 motions just to update on that civil case
Oh, yeah. Tell me about
with
that.
David Martin. So David Martin versus the town of LRL, obviously. On December 30th, defendant James Kelly Ulmer IV filed a motion. He wants a more definite statement under Rule 12E of South Carolina Rules of Civil Procedure. He wants David Martin to provide the what, who, when, where, and how the defamation statements were made.
Was there anything said in there about the police radio that Kelly allegedly stole and
No.
was using to listen in on police business? Allegedly?
No.
No? They didn't talk about that?
No, they did not talk about any of the
maybe they
other
will.
allegations, only the defamation, which is interesting. Very interesting.
And I know the mayor did a filing.
Yes. So the mayor did a filing the same day. This particular filing. Mayor Fanning filed their official answer to David Martin's complaint, and the key points: general denial. The defendants, town of Ellery and Mike Fanning, deny most of Martin's allegations and demand proof where they lack sufficient information. I'll go into.
Now, wait a minute. Do they? You said most. Is there anything that they?
Yeah, I'll talk about that in just a second.
I'm wondering if where Fanning is concerned, that did he agree with the part that he allegedly obstructed justice where Jessica Darnell's alleged arson is concerned, or attempted arson?
Mike Fanning has.
I wonder if David Martin has any pictures of that stuff.
I don't know.
Or any body cam footage of conversations with Fanning.
Yeah. I would love to know what the evidence is, and it'll all come out. We're not privy to that information right now.
Not really.
I will tell you that Mike Fanning is claiming sovereign immunity, legislative, and absolute immunity, which means he ain't taking no responsibility. He says, I didn't do nothing.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Even though he's a strong mayor and this is his town and it was under his leadership at that time, but he didn't do anything. I have a real problem with somebody who doesn't take personal responsibility. And Mike Fanning is not taking any responsibility whatsoever. The only responsibility that he is taking, the only thing that he is admitting to, is limited factual points like Martin's termination day and certain emails. That's it.
What about taking the radio from David? He doesn't admit that. Does he address that in there at all? No. Well, it's my understanding that, it was Kelly that supposedly gave it back to.
Yep. Nothing.
to Mike. So that's not in there. They're not acknowledging that, and
No.
they're denying that. Mike's denying that.
He is, the statement is, denies most of Martin's allegations. And the only thing that he is admitting is limited factual points like Martin's termination date and certain else.
Now,
That's
what do
it.
we think about this evidence stuff where, the allegations around the evidence room and evidence that is missing and the idea, of course, being that they stole evidence and
Right.
either used it to enrich themselves or what have you. Wow. Earl Kinley.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say. How long was Earl there at the police department?
I think he was with LRE 17 years.
And he didn't know anything about that or see anything about that?
So my understanding, the conversations that I've had, is that Earl did not have access
To the evidence?
to the evidence room.
I see.
In my mind, my speculation is that was by design. I believe that the only folks that had access to the evidence room during Sean's tenure here was Sean. And when Mike came on, Mike Mann, and Jessica Darnell, I believe, had access. Well, obviously, she had access to it if the allegation is that she tried to burn it down. But she was also the victim's advocate here in Ellery. So, when a crime is committed.
Didn't she also have fire training or something?
She did. She trained at the South Carolina Fire Academy.
Was that before or after the alleged arson?
That was before.
Attempt.
That was before.
Before.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, might they have done something or taught something that might lead someone to believe that they could wrap this thing around a filament and start a fire?
Yeah, you would think.
So I wonder if there's any correlation there. It's all an assumption.
Right. My opinion, Jessica Darnell is a very bad player.
I was shocked at the allegation. The allegation is very, very serious. It's hard to respect Jessica Darnell because her taste in boyfriends is so shitty. Mike Mann shot himself in the leg, but acts like he shot himself in the brain.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And then, of course, the misfits, they just go everywhere. Like Mike went over to back to Holly Hill. We talked about that. Jessica went to Holly Hill, but apparently, didn't you hear that she might have been fired there? Is that true?
Yeah, she was fired from Holly Hill.
She was, in fact?
Yes, she has been fired from Holly Hill.
For what?
The allegation is embezzlement.
For theft from the department. Is that a known is that a known thing, or is that just some? This
is heard. This is what I've heard. So folks, it's hearsay, take it or leave it, but we know what the allegations here in LRE are. We do have missing cash. In fact, I spoke with a young lady who was arrested here in LRE a couple years ago for drugs. And interestingly enough, the drugs nowhere to be found.
They don't normally give you those back, do they? They come and pick up your.
Well, the $500 was paid in cash directly to Jessica. I asked.
Wait a minute.
When she went to pay her fine for the drugs, was paid in cash to Jessica.
Did she get a receipt?
She did not get a receipt.
Wait a minute. Hold on. So she goes into Ellery. Did she get a ticket or a summons or anything?
She did. She got a ticket.
And does it have the date on it?
The ticket has the date.
Hold on. Does she have an ATM receipt for taking money out of the bank?
She is in food service, so a lot of her money is cash that she.
So she just goes to the drawer, takes the cash, goes to Ellery, gets no receipt.
That is correct. And interestingly enough,
but she would. Is this?
I've pulled her background, and the charge for the crack cocaine that she was charged for is nowhere on her criminal background.
So, okay. Crack.
I know what my opinion is of that whole situation. I'm going to leave that to the audience to kind of figure out. But here's the scenario.
Receipt. Is she on crack? Sorry, I set that up and everything. I had to circle back to it.
And so I'll leave that to the audience to come to their own conclusion. I know what my conclusion is. I mean, again, if it's a duck, call it a duck.
If it quacks like a duck and walks like
Yeah.
a duck, it's a duck. Isn't that the statement?
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. So we covered Venezuela. We covered HB
4764.
and we covered LRE in all of its glory. And we even covered ducks.
That's right. Quack, quack.
So with that,
Have fun with that, Sean. Last one was pigs. This one's quack, quack.
okay, from Ellery, South Carolina. Bye-bye.
Good night, y'all.